Now, if you're looking for an excuse to maybe not rake up your lawn, then listen up. October is Leave the Leaves month. And to learn more about why you should maybe skip the yard work is David Mizejewski, a naturalist with the National Wildlife Federation. David, can you explain exactly what the Leave the Leaves movement is?
Sure, yeah. The National Wildlife Federation, my organization, has designated the month of October as Leave the Leaves Month. And the reason we do that is that the leaves that fall at this time of the year are actually really important. They can help us in our gardens, and they're really particularly important for wildlife. Species like birds and butterflies and lots of other animals actually rely on that fallen leaf layer. So it's actually a really good thing that you can do at this time of the year.
Absolutely. Now, you kind of mentioned how it helps wildlife. Can you elaborate a little bit more on that?
Sure, yeah. The leaf layer that naturally forms in the fall when all the deciduous trees lose their leaves and even the evergreens oftentimes drop a lot of their needles, it's actually a whole habitat. There's literally thousands of creatures that rely on that fallen leaf layer. And the obvious ones are things like earthworms and little isopods and pill bugs or roly-polies. But there's other insects and other invertebrates that live in that leaf layer that you might not think about, like butterflies and moths. A huge percentage of our moth species actually overwinter in the fallen leaves in a cocoon. And that's how they survive the cold temperatures, because those fallen leaves provide insulation. Now, those moths, when they are adults, they're pollinators. And as they continue their life cycle, the moth caterpillars are critically important food for birds next spring. 96% of our backyard birds feed their babies moth caterpillars as a main food source. So, if you're raking up and throwing away all of your leaves in the fall, you're literally robbing the baby birds of their food source in the spring.
I mean, when you put it that way, we got to leave the leaves out there. Now, is it going to hinder or help my yard at all? I think that's always somebody's concern.
Absolutely. Yeah. Think of it this way. The trees lose their leaves, they drop down right over the root zone of the plant where they retain soil moisture, they suppress weeds, and they slowly compost and return the nutrients right to the roots of plants. That sounds an awful lot like mulch and fertilizer, right? So why are we throwing it away? Mother Nature is providing it to us, and it's really exactly the purpose of the fallen leaves in the ecosystem. So rather than spend your whole weekend raking and bagging up and throwing away all of those leaves, or worse, leaf blowing them, which is causes a lot of noise pollution and air pollution. What you should try to do is keep your leaves on your property as much as you can. Now, yes, if you leave a thick layer of leaves on your lawn, it's going to smother the lawn. That's not a bad thing because lawns are kind of a dead zone. They don't really support anything. But we recognize that a lot of people, sometimes are required even to remove the leaves from your lawn. So the best thing that you can do is use the fallen leaves as a natural mulch in your planting beds. Put them under your trees and shrubs, cover your perennial wildflowers as they go dormant, just like you would any other mulch. And not only will you be recycling, but you'll be providing really important wildlife habitat.
That's so fascinating. I love the way that you put that. Now, what happens if you live in a wildfire-prone area?
Yeah, so this is a really important one. In many parts of the West, California in particular, you don't want to leave the leaves right up around your property because they can be potentially a hazard for fire safety. You want to create that defensible zone around your property. So there are ways to still have a natural landscape. You just want to do it a little bit further out. And the National Wildlife Federation has fire safety tips as well as a whole bunch of other practical tips on how to keep your leaves on your property on our website. It's nwf.org/leave the leaves.